Hello everyone, I hope you're all good. I today wanted to sit down and talk you through some of the plants that I am struggling with, ones that aren't doing what I would like them to be doing, and ones that I just can't currently get my head around because on the whole, I'm feeling really on top of my plant care at the moment. I've said it in other videos as well, but I'm in a phase right now where, don't get me wrong, plant care is always something that I love, but right now I'm like, oh my God, this is just, I forgot how passionate I was about it and I just want to be doing it all the time. Whenever I'm working, I'm like, I just want to be doing things with my plants. And it's a wonderful feeling, but I think when you are really on top of things, it often highlights the areas where things could be going a little bit better. So I would not suggest these ones from my experience as beginner plants, but I'll talk you through them as we get to them individually. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And yeah, none of these plants that I'm going to show you today are ones that currently I'm giving up with either. They're ones that I would really like to keep in my collection. So I am hoping that by kind of chatting through some things with you today, I might be able to form a little bit of a plan as to how I move forward with them. So yes, I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So, as I often say with these kind of videos, the plants that I've brought over to show you today are in no particular order. I haven't been like the best to the worst or anything like that. They are just all ones that I'm not completely happy with at the moment. And we're going to start with one that I'm not even sure I've shown you before. If you've been on my channel for a little while, you'll know that I've talked a few times about my secret Antherium collection. And all that means is not one that I'm like deliberately hiding from you. It's just a genus of plants that I do sometimes struggle a little bit with. And so I, for the time being, don't want to kind of talk about that much on my channel. So for that reason, I'm keeping it all to myself. And this is one of my secret antheriums that I am really, really struggling with. And this is the Antherium Angamacarnum. And what I will do is I'll go through on one side of the screen. I will put pictures of what the plants could look like, the potential of the plants, because when I first heard about this Antherium, I saw a picture of it and I was like, oh my God, I was like, that is amazing. I would love the opportunity to grow that plant. And I've had this one now for probably about 8 months and I've never been able to get it out of the one leaf club. This is not the leaf that it came with. However, this is the only leaf it's given me whilst I've owned the plant. And as you can tell, it is a vining antherium, which, to be honest, I haven't had the most luck with in the past either. The Antherium SP Lemon was the last vining antherium that I gave up on. I chopped that one up in the end and I took it to the plant swap because I was just like, I cannot get my head around what this one likes and what it doesn't. And so, yeah, this one is just looking a little bit battered at the moment. I have done a little collar with a cup here and I've got tree fern fibre there, kind of building up humidity in this area so that hopefully the aerial roots can start kind of putting out into the substrate and strengthening the plant system. And I can see at the top there it has done a little bit of that, but to no avail. It's not doing anything else for me, and I've tried it in lots of different conditions, and I know that like 8 months isn't a massive amount of time to be able to experiment with lots of different things and see the full effect of them, because sometimes a plant does need to be in specific conditions for at least a few months before you can get an idea of what it likes and what it doesn't like. But lighting wise so far, I have tried it in both medium and bright indirect light. Currently it's in bright indirect light. It's on one of my window shelves right at the top. It gets a little bit of very gentle morning and evening sun, which is absolutely fine for all of my other antheriums in that area. It is also one that I've noticed does like more water than some of my other types of antherium, and it's kind of weird that, because obviously it's not like it's producing a huge amount of growth, but it does just seem to guzzle water very, very quickly. And because antheriums are epiphytic plants as well, I've got this one growing in, I think, about I don't know, roughly about 20% soil. Maybe I've got a handful of soil in there, but mainly it's tree fern fibre and bark. And again, that keeps my other anthuriums in that area really happy. But this one is just one that I definitely haven't struck the right balance with yet, and I just can't get my head around. And as I say, I have completely fallen in love with the potential of this plant, and for that reason, I think it would be a really hard one for me to let go. But it does get to the point where it's a little bit frustrating, and I think when you've got limited space as well, and I have got other plants that I would like to at some point try in my collection, I'm like, do I maybe pass this on to someone else for the time being and see how they get on with it, and then further down the line when I have got a bit more space, then maybe I can get it again and play about? I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, actually this is one that perhaps I am considering getting rid of, but I'd like to be able to just make it work. So if any of you have this type of anthurium and can shed any light on what might be going wrong, what I might not be doing, then please let me know, because as I say, the potential is wonderful. Oh, and another one that I was so excited to get and is not doing what I had hoped it would do is the Euphoria Latia White Ghost. And I know I said at the beginning of this video, most of these are ones that maybe I wouldn't recommend for beginners. If you are not an overwaterer, this actually is a very low maintenance plant that I would say probably could do quite well for beginners. But I got this as a cutting at the beginning of the year, and it was, I think, about up to there, and it was doing pretty well for me. And then what did I do? I put it under the end of the sofa when I was filming a video, and then Yoli jumped on the sofa cushion and broke the top off. So as you can see, I've got a clean cut where it snapped off there. And although it has started putting out new growth, and it is doing quite well in that respect, the growth is almost completely, in fact, there it is completely reverted. And while I don't mind, in fact, I actually quite like the fact that it's got a nice balance of variegation, like it's not all white. I would like there to be some white, because I've got lots of euphorbias in my collection that I love, but lots that are very green and more like this. And it's kind of hard to know what to do at this stage. I'm like, do I chop it back again? Do I risk doing that? Then let this section callus and maybe pot them up together? Because it's such a small section and it has taken quite a long time to get going, I feel a little reluctant to do that. But any euphorbia growers that have experienced maybe propping them smaller, again, please let me know. What would you do? Because I really would love this plant to be big and full in my collection. And at the moment, I feel like I've just hit a little bit of a wall there. And for that reason, although it's a plant that I really like, I would currently not say it's one that I love. Oh, I've just noticed a plant doing something very interesting. Completely unrelated to the video, but I've just seen something quite exciting. So yeah, I don't really know what I feel about this one right now. I'm thinking I will probably try some kind of chop. I could even take the top section to the plant swap. There is one coming up in October, so maybe I'll do that. Yeah, otherwise, care-wise, I find it quite straightforward. A lot of you were saying last time, have you tried upping its light? And this one is literally growing in direct sun in a south-facing window. I don't really know what else I could be doing lighting-wise. So yeah, maybe I have just answered my own question. Maybe I do just need to chop it. Yeah, okay. I think that is my plan. This is why making these kind of videos is useful, because sometimes hearing things out loud, it's almost like I'm chatting through them with you. Unless you're all screaming at the screens, no, don't do that. Then if that is the case, please let me know and I won't do anything for the next week or so. Oh, and then this next one, you might be quite surprised that I've put this one on the list. I'm gonna have to move back to show you this one because it is huge, but it is my very large Philodendron Dean McDowell, and I love this plant. I absolutely love this plant, and you might be, again, quite surprised that I'm including it based on what I said at the beginning, because this actually is a very easy plant to look after. It's a very low maintenance one. I have found it, in many ways, a doddle to grow. However, it is a crawling plant, and it's currently my only crawler in my collection, purely for the fact that they take up so much space. These trough planters take up space, and because they grow along instead of vertically upright, it just means that, like, currently this one is like flopping in our faces because it's behind the sofa. It's flopping in our faces when we're watching TV. It's just always a little bit in the way. Oh, and I'm gonna pop it back here actually, because even holding it up to show you is really quite difficult. But yeah, I've kind of toyed with many a thought as to what to do with that one, because I would love not to have to chop it just yet if I can possibly help it. I really tried to encourage its growth, and I put a clip in so you can see what I mean, but I really tried to encourage its main stem's growth to circle back in the pot instead of grow out of the pot, so I didn't have to chop it before, and that worked. We've kind of thought, well, maybe we could put up a shelf on, like, up there where the mirrors are. Maybe we could put up a shelf up there or something and it could grow up there. But I don't know how much of a long-term solution that would actually be, and I'm not sure that would work. Again, it comes down to a space issue, because in a one-bedroom flat with lots and lots of plants, you do just have to be a little bit precious about what you take on. And I don't want to give up that plant because I really like it. But when your plants start growing significantly, you do have to make some brutal choices sometimes. So unless we manage to move fairly soon, I'm thinking I might either need to chop up that plant and just keep a cutting for myself so that I can get it going again further down the line. Yeah, or consider rehoming the plants, which makes me really, really sad, the thought of that. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. It's a really lovely plant that I love and I appreciate, but it's just not that practical. And when something is constantly in your way, it's hard to just feel positive about it. But moving on to the next one, and this is one that, again, I've included on favourites lists fairly recently, and I've spoken really, really positively about this plant. So again, you might be quite surprised to see it on this list, but it's the Begonia Hirtella. And this one I got as a one-leaf cutting at the Bristol Plant Swap earlier this year, and I said it at the time, I don't think ever known a plant to grow as quickly as this one. Within 24 hours it had little roots starting to form, and I'd potted it up within a couple of weeks, and it went absolutely crazy, and I was like, how is this plant just growing this fast? It's insane. And then everything started to go a little bit wrong with it, and this started happening just when I got back from holiday, which was, I think, maybe about a month ago now. I noticed that lots of its leaves kind of were curling in like this, and in fact I'm going to take this leaf off so that I can like hold it up and show you a bit better. But I almost wondered if it was pest related, because if you look there you can see all of them were just browning from the inside out. And for that reason I gave this plant a really big lop back, and although it's looking better than it was, I can see lots of its leaves are again starting to do that, even on like the little ones that are coming up here. Do you see? It's very, very brown. And prior to this, it was just glorious and conditioned and green, and it was growing like a weed, and its rate of growth has definitely slowed down as well, which makes me think there is probably something underlying. But I don't know what that something is, because I've checked it for pests, I've isolated it, I've treated it, I've checked the roots. Its growing conditions have remained exactly the same as before when it was happy and growing. So I'm just really quite baffled. I don't know what could be going on. I'm also very new to begonias, and I get a little bit freaked out when a plant that I don't feel I know very well starts doing something weird. And so it's hard to know what is the right thing to do here. As I say, I gave it a good chop back before. I can see it's getting a little bit leggy in places, so maybe I should just chop it right back and start again, have a bit of a reset with the plant. That might be the best way forward. I don't know. But again, anyone that has experience with begonias or has this type of begonia, please let me know what you would recommend. It actually looks really quite good on camera, ironically. And it's not that it looks bad in real life, it's just that, yeah, I can tell something's not quite right with it. So yeah, theories, please, would be very useful. Oh, and this is one that I chopped up the other day because I wasn't getting on well with, and if you watched my last plant chores video, then you've probably seen this one, but I thought I would include it anyway. It is the Variegated Rapitor Tetras Sperma, and my plant of this got, I think, about that big, and it was looking okay. But again, I was really struggling with its variegation because it was just going incredibly brown and then just kind of cracking and shriveling and drying up. And like, I love the normal non-variegated Rapitor Tetrasperma, and although I think the variegated one is lovely, and again, if I see it in someone else's collection, I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. It's not one that I had a burning desire to grow initially. The price point of anything put me off, to be honest. And this was very kindly actually given to me by one of my friends, and I feel like I've given it a really good go, and I haven't not enjoyed growing this plant, but when it all started going a little bit wrong, I was just like, I think, again, there's probably other people that are going to enjoy growing this plant more than me. So yeah, I have chopped the whole thing up. I haven't yet decided whether or not I might keep a cutting of it back for myself. Maybe I will. I don't know. But yeah, I'm propagating all of the sections of it in sphagnum moss at the moment. And I really hope that someone else has better luck with it, because again, I feel like I had kind of nailed its lighting conditions. It was getting really good humidity, which is often the cause of browning variegation. The roots looked fine. There was no, as far as I'm aware, no watering imbalance. So yeah, it's one that has been a struggle, and for me right now, it just hasn't been worth it in the way that I hoped it would be. That's not to say that I won't feel differently about it further down the line, because there have been times over the years that I've said this and then I've come back to a plant later and I've been like, oh my God, it's like, I was going to say a new lease of life, like a fresh pair of eyes sometimes can be nice after a little period of a break from a plant. So we will see. We'll see. But yeah, for the time being, I'm propping to plant swap. And then another anthurium that I am struggling with is what's this one called? The Antherium Metallicum, I believe. And as you can see, not particularly happy. And both of these are leaves that it's given me in the time that I've owned this plant. I got this one actually at a pretty similar time, I think, to the Angamacarnum. I got both of these ones from Eastern Tropicals. And I think that was about 8 months ago-ish. And as you can tell, this one, like, it's not that it's not giving me growth. And in fact, I can see it has got a new growth point here that's kind of getting ready to pop. But all of its growth just looks very bleached and yellow. And it's not like this even feels like it's going to die off. Like, it still feels very robust and the plant physically feels quite healthy, but I can just tell that it's not. And I can only think that perhaps the reason for this is that I've got this one growing in pretty much pure sphagnum moss. I've got a little bit of perlite in there as well. It's also a little bit dry on top at the moment. But I'm like, maybe it needs less of that, because there are some types of plant that don't like growing in sphagnum moss. Typically with anthuriums, because they are epiphytic plants, I tend to find they get on quite well with it, but maybe I should try potting it up in something a little bit more, I was going to say nutrient dense, but I do fertilise this plant, so yeah, just something with a bit more texture perhaps. Again, if you've got, like, I know I'm saying it with all of these plants, but I always find hearing your feedback and suggestions really, really useful. Because this one is sizing up as well. That's the weird thing. In the time that I've had it, like, I think when I first got it, its leaves were only about that big, and it only came, if I remember correctly, with 1 or 2 leaves. But it is significantly sizing up. Like, this is a fairly big leaf. And it's just strange that it's doing that to then respond like this. Again, can't see any sign of pests or anything like that. So yeah, it's a mystery. And another mystery that I'm starting to think is perhaps just how this plant is the Alocasia green shield. And this one I've spoken to you about many times over the years. I've had this one in my collection for, I think, about 3 years now. I got it actually from Emma Good Growing when I was living back at my mum's in, I think, one of our first plant swaps that we ever did together, which I think was about 3 years ago. And it is an alocasia that is just very leggy in its structure. Like, it does have very long stems compared to others. They're a little bit more condensed and bushy. And in itself, I don't mind that. But bearing in mind, I feel like I'm doing all the, again, quote unquote, right things to keep this plant happy. I've really kind of looked at its natural habitat. I've adapted many a time to try and accommodate for this plant and make it happier. I can very rarely get it out of the 2 or 3 leaf club. Like, at the moment, as you see, it's got 2 leaves. It did have a third that I chopped back the other day because I could tell it was getting ready to die off. I actually don't know if I've ever had more than 3 leaves on this plant. And I've seen pictures of them, granted not a lot, but I have seen pictures of this plant with loads of beautiful leaves. And yeah, it's just a bit baffling to me because, again, I've got it growing in semi-hydro. It's got a fantastic root system. This one's growing in my cabinet, so really good humidity, really good light, and it continues to just cycle. So it's a mystery, but I do, however, love this one's foliage. I think it's so beautiful. I love the fact that the sinus is kind of joined. It hasn't got lobes, and it's just, I've said it before, but almost like a weird, cool, kind of like alien-y plant. Yeah, I think it's just so awesome. But yeah, it's one that I just can't get my head around. So again, you know what I'm going to say. Help me. And this one has been in struggle videos before, as well as favourite videos before. But this is my Drymonia Cherrybana, and I got this one at the beginning of the year. And again, similar to what I said about the Begonia Hatella, I said at the time, oh my God, this plant is like, it grows at the speed of light. It is so quick to grow. It doesn't give me any grief. Then I decided to chop and propagate it and essentially get the plant a little more fuller. And that's when all of the issues started. And for the last however many months, probably 5 months now, it's just looked like this, and it has not looked happy, and I'm not particularly enjoying growing it, to be honest. I think probably what I feel is perhaps the right thing to do next for this plant is to get it into a no drainage system. I know I've spoken a lot recently, and in fact I've got one here that I can show you as an example. I've spoken a lot recently about the fact that I'm transferring a lot of my plants into either semi-hydro but also soil with no drainage. So if you have a look at this one, you can see it's got a layer of semi-hydro on the bottom, which typically I will keep a teeny tiny little reservoir of filled, and then I've got my substrate on top of that. It is just a way that, yeah, I'm experimenting with at the moment and having great success with. And I don't know why, I just kind of feel like this might be a type of plant that responds quite well to that. As I say, I'm not really basing that off anything apart from gut instinct. Like, it is quite a succulent plant. I have got ones like, and I'm going to show you it just because it's looking amazing right now, but ones like my Coleus amboinicus, which I keep talking to you about, and oh my God, every time I show you this plant, I swear to God, it has like quadrupled in size. It's huge. But this is a semi-succulent, and this is growing beautifully in no drainage. So yeah, I think that's what my gut is saying to try next. Because I feel a bit stuck with it, and I wasn't initially. This just really goes to show that it does take quite a long time to actually fully understand and get to know a plant, because as I say, I got this one initially and it was just doing great things for like over a month. So yeah, it's a learning curve and it's a journey, and I'll let you know when we get there, but we're not quite there yet. And then this is quite a sad one. This is my beautiful Hoya Linearis that I have struggled on and off with, actually. Not for it being a difficult Hoya per se, but the last big struggle I had with it, you might remember last year, I had mealybugs really badly on it, and oh my God, mealybugs on any plant are a nightmare, but one like the Hoya Linearis just has so many little nooks and crannies, it is near impossible to get them gone. Like, it took me, I think, about 5 different treatments to actually treat the plant, and hours and hours and hours of going through with a little paintbrush and isopropyl alcohol and like doing all the manual stuff. And got it back to a really good state. It was looking really healthy, really happy, and again, went away on holiday recently. And I did water it before I went, so this is why I'm a little bit confused. But I think it's just, I don't know, I think it just dried up to the point that so much of it has just died back. Like, that is, I can see bits of it falling off on the floor as I'm showing you it. It is just skeletal and unsavable. I have got some little sections here in amongst the dead ones that are doing okay. So again, I'm chopping and propping. I've already taken some cuttings and I will take some more from here and try and save the plants. It just sucks because I just got it back to a good state and it is just so sad that I'm having to do it all again. It is a very not sensitive Hoya, I don't know really how to describe it. It's just a Hoya that it's not as drought tolerant as some of my others. I think that's fair to say, and also more susceptible to issues caused by overwatering, i.e. root rot, fungal issues. So again, actually, this is one that probably would do quite well, again, in the no drainage system. I think that actually would work really quite well, so maybe I'll do that. I could even propagate in that way because obviously you can prop Hoya straight into soil, so maybe I will give that a go. But yeah, in the meantime, I haven't even taken it off my hanging rail. I'm just keeping it there, but it makes me very sad every time I walk into the room because obviously it is mainly very dead. But then finally another one that I have spoken to you about before, and I isn't doing badly, but I think I'm just growing it in the wrong way. And I know I said last time that I would probably try and change it up. I think I'm just really hoping that the plant decides it wants to grow differently for me. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But it is the Scindapsus Silver Hero, and it's such a beautiful one. Granted, this is a little bit dry at the moment, hence why its foliage is a little bit curly. I have managed to also get a section of growth down here that is quite leafy, but the thing that I struggle with this plant, and like I say, I think it's probably because it isn't on a moss pole, but it does put out quite long kind of runners of growth with no foliage at all that just look very sparse, very leggy. I have propagated some of them. I've got lots of sections in prop boxes that I'm hoping to, again, get going and then pop back up with this section to make it a little bit fuller. But it is still one that I just find is consistently looking quite leggy. And again, I look at pictures, I know social media isn't a good comparison always to form, but I look at pictures of this plant on social media sometimes and I'm like, people are growing it in the same way as I'm growing like my Silverian, my Argyraeus, my all my other different types of Scindapsus. It is seemingly possible, just not for me currently. So I think maybe light is an issue. I haven't got it in the brightest spot in the world. It's not in a low light spot by any means, but it's definitely not getting quite as much light as perhaps it could be. Also, its foliage down here is just very, very small. So again, maybe that's come down to light. But yeah, so it's one that I'm still getting to know. I would love actually to grow some of this on a moss pole at some point, but again, it does just come down to space. I'll walk you through it in a few days, but I actually have had a pretty major rearrange in the last month, and all of my moss pole plants are currently taking up so much space to the point that I can't get out of my door at the moment, which doesn't matter because the balcony's got scaffolding all over it, but it's just not particularly practical adding anything else into the equation that would also need to fill that space because there is no space left in that area. But yeah, those are the ones currently, those are the main ones that I am just hitting a little bit of a wall with. As I've said a million times throughout this video, any advice at all is always really appreciated. I very rarely take anything as criticism unless it's meant to be criticism. So yeah, anything at all would be really useful. And let me know as well in the comments what some of your plants are that you just can't strike the right balance with, because maybe we could help each other out and give each other some tips. And I'm sure some of the ones that I find really difficult, you guys find really, really easy, and vice versa. Obviously, a lot of it is, I'm sure, environmental, but yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.